My name is Pete Fuller. I am running for Georgia House District 31. Thank you for the Chamber for holding this. It's a really important forum to hold for the community, for people to be able to see and hear from their candidates. And I know this body's done amazing work over the last few years to the area. I know that you're larger than ever and doing just amazing things, and I applaud you for that, along with just having this forum for us there. Apart from running from office, I'm a husband, I'm a father. My wife, Ray Lynn's an amazing woman, but she's been married to me for almost 18 years, so that's a huge thing on her benefit. But she also went back to school in her late 30s, earned a master's in nursing, and now works as an RN. I've got two kids, Ryan and Carter. They're 15 and 13. They're both with the Jefferson Schools, and they are the best kids in the world, as well as great students and band members. My family is awesome. And they've made this extreme family bonding of the last year, or going on a year now, much more bearable. I'm a native Georgian. I was born and raised in Coffee County, Georgia, which is, on 441, go about 200 miles south, and you'll be there. Graduated Coffee High School, then Zell Miller paid for me to go to UGA, where I earned a degree in social science ed, and then a master's in instructional technology. I originally came to Jackson County first as an employee of the school system, working as a tech specialist at West Jackson Middle School, and then I ended up managing servers and workstations across the county. I worked in the schools about 10 years before going out to the private sector following the 2008 crisis, but not before we had moved to Jefferson, where we've dropped some roots down and have made a life that we love. I've been active in the community, working on serious issues with the local Democratic Party and political issues of concern, namely over in Houston, and with broadband in my local community. And I've had a lot of fun on stage, and I'm now a board member with the Jefferson Community Theater. So there's that. I'm running for this reason. Jackson County is full of hardworking, big-hearted folks who I don't think are receiving the respect or the attention or the support they deserve from their representative. We've added 20,000 new residents, nearly a third of the population, while the incumbent, Mr. Tommy Benton, has been in office. While this population is changing with the times, much of our leadership has remained stuck in the past that sometimes has not been all that pretty. I came to this area 14 years ago, and I've grown with the community. I've seen the good in the county, and I've seen the good with the citizens. I've also seen the hardships, many of which have been ignored or even worse, mocked by our current representative. No matter what the personal affection or loyalty one might have for this man, I hope the most understand that his history of hateful comments and his lack of influence within his own party at this point make him bad for county interests. My vision for Jackson County represents the community as a whole, as well as specific current problems, such as the failure of local internet in our homes and inadequate funding for our schools. It's time that we're no longer overlooked, and it's time that we start looking forward. I'm running to be a voice and representative for today's Jackson County. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And since your opponent is not here, we'll just go right one by one on the questions for you. Question number one, the one thing that is mandatory for our state government every year is to pass a balanced budget. Tell us what your budget priorities are for the next season.
All right, this seems like a popular question here. Really, education is number one. This is something that we as a state has to do. And I'm tired of education being the piggy bank that we fund when money's all right, but then when money's tight, we just kind of ignore it. Or we've only fully funded education by the QBE formula, which is not adequate already, 2 out of the last 20 years. That's not something to celebrate. That's definitely not something to get a gold star for. That's kind of ridiculous. And to put education in this pot, and not only where we only fund it when we have the money, not okay. We also need to, especially looking at what we had coming into this year, even before we had the COVID situation, we were looking at budget cuts already. And this came out of a tax cut that was given by the previous year. You got to look at the middle 40, 60% of earners. They got like an average of $40 back, less taxes out of that. I would gladly pay that $40 to make sure that mental health care is funded better, to make sure that we had adult day health funded. All the things that we don't want to fund in this and see as an afterthought in our budget. And also want to make sure that we're looking for ways to increase revenue as well. We see when did hit in this very forum for the primaries, I saw all the legislators there just bemoan the fact, though, it's automatically going to be budget cuts to education. There was never a single thought about how to raise revenue to offset some of those cuts, and that also is not okay. Just raising the cigarette tax up to the national average would have offset the cuts that were made to education by 2/3. There was no talk of going in and looking at tax breaks that we give to multinational corporations, willy-nilly, billions of them. None of those were evaluated and said, oh, are these really necessary right now to help us in this situation? And especially, so we can look at those things because it really does, it really hurts the fact that we give these tax cuts to these multinational corporations. We don't give those tax cuts to our mom and pop businesses that could really use them as well. It puts them at the disadvantage and makes it harder for them to compete in those situations. So let's fund education. Let's look at the tax breaks that we're giving to the people that have the best lobbyists, and try to fund our mental health services, fund our public servants. That's what I want to do.
All right, Mr. Fuller, thank you so much. We'll get to question number 2. I think Bo will be ready for next with D when we come back to them after you're done with yours. Question number 2, Mr. Fuller. What are opportunities that you see to increase rural broadband and connectivity in your district starting with the next legislative session? And appreciate David here on the text box. Because of our glitches tonight a little bit, he kind of wanted you to answer this question anyway, so I'm glad it was part of the forum.
Oh yeah. And so I'm by trade a network engineer. That's what I've been doing for going on 20 years now, in different capacities. Now, really, my first little foray into doing anything in the political realm was I got tapped to be on the Jefferson Broadband Committee probably 5 or 6 years ago by Mayor Quinn, then Councilman Quinn, because I was active on a Facebook forum that some of us had put together to discuss issues of broadband in Jefferson. What we found in that was Windstream basically we were able to actually get, and it wasn't me, let me not be very clear, it wasn't me at the head of any of this, but this little Facebook forum was able to figure out, first of all, the Windstream had taken something like billions of dollars in aid from the Connect America Fund at the federal level and then pocketed it instead of actually using it to expand rural broadband like they were supposed to. We were able to work with Doug Collins' office actually to then put some leverage on the FCC to then put leverage on Windstream to actually expand broadband there. We got $30 million of broadband of money put into Jefferson to expand rural broadband right there, which is really a drop in the bucket in a lot of ways. It was not a solution at all. But what it does do is illustrate when there's a lack of any leverage for services, there's very little that the government can do. So first of all, I think for broadband, especially if we don't think after this year that broadband is a utility, a necessary one, then it is. It has an impact. It's not just for watching Netflix anymore. It's for working, it's for our schools, it's for everyday life. It's our seniors have to have it to enroll in Social Security. Like it is a integral part of our lives at this point. The Public Service Commission has no authority to regulate broadband at all. They can regulate the phone line that the broadband comes in on, but if your internet provider comes in and says, oh, we just need to upgrade your plan to something much, much more expensive, and then they actually can't follow through with it, there is no repercussions on that. We need to empower the Public Service Commission to have some sort of regulatory authority over these broadband companies. That's something that we don't see these types of issues in electricity or in our phones. We have this is very much a broadband only data situation. So that's one thing we can do. Second of all, we've been talking about this forever, and I'm glad that the legislature finally moved forward and gave the MCs the full permission to move into the broadband space. A lot of them had already been in this already. They took kind of a position of asking for forgiveness instead of permission. I would love to see Jackson EMC in this area actually take that step, and I would love to have that conversation with someone with that organization, because we've got 20% of our county that cannot get internet that meets the FCC definition. And the FCC definition of broadband is only 25 meg down and I think 4 meg up. It's not very fast to start off with. And so I would love to see the EMCs get involved with that and get incentives to actually get them out that are underserved. We can wait on the population density to be enough for some of the companies to get into, but there's parts of Jackson County that probably wouldn't have electricity at this point if it weren't for the original EMCs in the 1930s with the New Deal legislation. There's a part of this that has to be properly subsidized and funded and pushed. And that's where we just need to take those steps and figure out ways to make that happen.